Hey there, everybody. Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness, leading the movement for movement and bringing you yet another awesome edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, where we take a concept. What are we talking about? The royal we, right? Anyway, Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, where I take a concept or strategy that we use in autism fitness programming and elaborate on it so that it gives you functional information. Ooh, that sounds technical. Functional information meaning you can actually take it and use it, and it'll enhance your fitness and adapted PE programs for the autism and neurodivergent population. And of course, if this is helpful for you, or if you have questions, or better yet, topics that you want me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, put those in the comments below, and more than or. And like, subscribe, and of course share this with people, professionals, family members who might find this valuable. So in this edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, I am going to be covering what we can do to optimize our first session with an athlete. And this comes up because I've done a number of assessment sessions lately in the hundreds, and I don't know about thousands, but definitely hundreds that I've done throughout my career, maybe thousands at this point. And that is why I rely on the PAC profile. Physical, adaptive, and cognitive, measuring those three things as best we can in the first session so that we know where we are going. We don't know where we're going with a program until we have those baseline skills. Thing number one about baseline skills is that they are going to change over time. But if we don't take a baseline, then we don't know where we're starting, and we don't know how to get to where we want to go in all three of those areas: the physical, the adaptive, and the cognitive. I'll get to what each of those means in a second. If you're already familiar, then it will be a little bit redundant, but redundant with good reason. So when I'm measuring baseline, it gives me a starting point so that I can take the guesswork out of what level of performance I should start this exercise at for a particular athlete. So in that first session, what do I want to do? Well, it sounds obvious, but it may not be. Grade the athlete and speak to them at an age-appropriate level, and also invite them into the center, clinic, gym, wherever. Be their guide for where they are going to go, and we're not going to assume that the athlete already knows what the expectations are, what the program is going to be, what they're going to be doing. So even backing that up further, oftentimes a social story or a narrative of or a short video of the environment can be helpful so the athlete knows what's coming next. What is the best way to avoid anxiety or provoking anxiety is letting someone know what's happening next. So when we have a calm, focused athlete, we can get a lot more done. So let's go into the PAC profile itself and how it relates to that first session. The PAC profile is our operating system in autism fitness programming. It stands for physical, adaptive, and cognitive performance. And when we break the three of those down, and here's the elevator ride version of breaking those three down. Physical refers to the exercises themselves and at what level the athlete can perform a squat or a push or a pull or a carry relative to what the standard is for that exercise. So if my standard in squat or for the squat is 3 sets of 10 below parallel with a controlled eccentric, how do I measure that up against what the athlete is demonstrating right now? Now, if they cannot do that exercise to standard just yet, no problem whatsoever. We need to figure out where they are starting, where they do have stability and strength and control of that movement, and program from there. So that's our baseline in physical. Adaptive is how motivated and focused our athlete is. We do not necessarily need them jumping up and down for joy, as would be the case with anybody in a gym or training or fitness or adapted PE setting, because they might be focused and they might be enjoying themselves, but we might not necessarily have the elated observable signs of that, and that's just fine. The question is, are they willing and engaged enough to complete a set of that exercise, that medicine ball push throw, the scoop throw, that band pull down? Are they engaged enough that they'll complete the set? That's going to tell us about how we can guide the athlete and how we can support them in furthering their exercise journey. So that's the adaptive. And finally, the cognitive is all about our coaching and cueing, the language that we use, our positioning, the way that we interact with the athlete. And this really comes down to communication and kinesthetic awareness. And of course, learn all this in the Autism Fitness certification. But I digress. Important things about the PAC profile and the methodology. So when you are assessing, you have those 3 areas of ability that you're looking to. Now let's get back to that first session. So in that first session, you might have an athlete who is completely engaged in the directions that we're giving them, in the exercises. They're trying it to the best of their ability right now. Great. Or we have an athlete who's a little more hesitant, might be standoffish, is waiting for more direction, or needs a little bit more in order to get into the session. And this is where choice is absolutely critical, and it's something that we use with each and every athlete, regardless of their perceived level of communication or capability. Of course, in the first session, we're not going to learn everything that we need to know about any athlete. You wouldn't learn everything that you need to know about a neurotypical athlete if you're working with them in the first session. It's just the first session. So I want to provide that athlete with a choice between the first 2 exercises. Do you want to start with this? Do you want to start with that? All right. So in warm-up, which is usually what we start with warm-up, we can ask the athlete, do you want to do overhead band walks first? Or do you want to do cone touches first? So we give them a choice. And what this does is magnificently, it structures the session and it develops rapport with that athlete as well. And it avoids us from having to say, do this, and then do this, and then do this, and then do this, and make it this directive session. We want to give the athlete a measure of autonomy and choice early and often. Now, for some athletes, it might be the case that they want you to pick the first exercise, and here we also want to demonstrate the exercise for them as well, because if I give the athlete a choice between 2 objects and 2 exercises, maybe they've never used a medicine ball before, maybe they've never used a resistance band, so I want to demonstrate the exercise for that athlete as well. Now, important point, if that athlete is hesitant about doing that first exercise, or if they're getting dysregulated, you can move on to the next exercise. The most important thing that I can say about an assessment session is it doesn't matter as much about how much you get done, but how engaged the athlete is and how comfortable they feel in the environment with you as a coach and with some of the exercises. If you're getting 2 or 3 exercises done in that 45 or 55-minute period, that's fine. It still gives you a baseline. So when you go to your next session, that second session, you can start off with those exercises and then gradually build it up. Keep in mind that sessions will vary significantly from that first assessment to the second session. Typically, the athlete is a lot calmer. They're a lot more focused. They are more familiar with the environment. They're more familiar with you as a coach. They're more familiar with the exercises. So you're usually going to get less anxiety, more focus, and more engagement. So I'm not all that worried about that first session. The next, and this is almost a magical incantation, not quite magical because there's some scientific backing to this as well, is let's try this. Instead of you have to, we've replaced it with let's try this. So let's try this medicine ball push throw. All right, we got 3 reps and then the athlete got dysregulated, or we did 3 reps and then the athlete is ready to do rep 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, let's keep going. Think of that initial session as a discovery process. It's not imperative to get as much as we can possibly get crammed into that session. And, I have a checklist on autism fitness programming. In our basic programming, we have about 18, I think it's 18, and we have about 18 different exercises. But it's not essential to get all those 18 exercises assessed during that first session. Totally fine. If you get 2, if you get 3, if you get 4, if you get 5, great. It gives you a starting point. So we don't need to obsess about, we got to get all this stuff done, because then that provokes anxiety for us, and then that provokes anxiety for the athlete, and it's just kind of a no-go from there. So the nice thing about having an ongoing assessment is we get a few exercises done or more bonus points in that initial assessment session, and it gives us a place to start. So starting off with choice, starting off with let's try this, and over time, and this comes with experience as a coach, but choosing the exercises that you think the athlete is going to do well at, and using your experience. Now, of course, I can't just give you experience, that's part of the professional journey, but with experience, what you'll find is that you start picking out areas where you think the athlete might be successful, and you might start using those exercises first during that assessment session. The last thing that I'll say about the assessment session is it is important to do two things: to label the exercises so that you can come back to them, and so that the athlete starts developing a working knowledge of those terms. So there's a push throw, there's an overhead throw, there's a scoop throw. And the other thing is checking in with the athlete. Do you need a break? Do you need water? Are you ready for the next set? I don't know how that athlete is handling different stimuli just yet, unless if they can vocally communicate to me that they're fine, that they're great, that they're ready. I love, are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. Okay, if you're ready, let's go. But checking in frequently with the athlete to make sure that they are set to go. And if they need an extra 30 or 45 seconds to self-regulate, especially in that first session where it can be overwhelming, then it's fine. Take 30 seconds, take a minute and a half to self-regulate. I would rather have an athlete who is ready, focused, and motivated performing an exercise because they took that extra 2 minutes than rushing an athlete through the exercise. Because if I rush them through the exercise, then guess what? I'm probably not going to get to see what their best current ability of that movement is right now anyway. So it kind of nullifies the point of quickly getting them through that exercise, right? So in that first session, look, first session is always kind of a testing and discovery period for everybody. I've been doing this 20 plus years, and when I have a new athlete in front of me, my first thought is, okay, what are we going to do? And then the experience kicks in, and I say, you know what? I think this is going to be a good first exercise, or let's give a choice here. Let me see what the athlete gravitates towards, and I am more than willing to be excitedly, happily, pleasantly surprised about an athlete's capabilities, especially when I don't know just yet whether or not they're going to be able to do this push-up or to do this sled push. I'm going to presume that they are capable in some way. I just don't know what that way is just yet. But once I do, there's my baseline, and I can start off my programming from there. So there's not too much here that differs from training and fitness programming for the neurotypical population. We just have to be a little bit more dialed in and conscientious of neurodivergent athletes, because they may not always be able to express their needs, or when they need a break, they may get overwhelmed very quickly in a new environment with new instructions and new physical activity. So we want to take an approach that respects the athlete, that enables us to figure out where they're at, what type of structure that we need in that programming from an exercise selection standpoint, from the standpoint of communication and breaks, and that if we are doing this thoroughly and providing the athlete with what they need as far as choice, as far as breaks, and having that functional and meaningful communication with them, that's going to give us more than enough opportunity to provide them with success after success, get our athletes stronger, moving better, and have that generalized to activities of daily living that is going to be truly wonderful and life-changing for them. So that is a little bit about your first session. And again, even for me, and I created the pack profile, it can be it can be a little bit daunting when you have an athlete in front of you for the first time, and it's let's go. And all right, well, what do? Give choice. Let the athlete guide so that we can coach. All right. So I hope this has been helpful for you, especially if you are just starting out creating your sessions, and if you're already an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, and this is a refresher for you. And of course, if you have a question or a topic that you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Training, Tuesday Training, just drop that into the comments below. I'm happy to answer it. And if you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, no better place to go than autismfitness.com. And you can check for our upcoming virtual and in-person practical dates. Of course, the certification is 2 parts, self-paced learning, and then of course the full day practical, so that you get the hands-on, brains-on, feet-on training that you and your athletes deserve. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again for another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training. Thank you for watching.